Mason.
Dan.
Tanner.
Hannah.
Jen.
Claire.
From Rixie, this is All Staff. All right, we are in episode 15 of All Staff. We've got 3 awesome guests for a very important reason. This is the Frameform crew. Thank you guys so much for joining us. How are you doing?
Yeah.
Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, great to be here. Great to be on All Staff with the staff.
Would you guys mind introducing yourself just in case people don't know the show or know you or are just finding us for some random reason on this episode?
Sure. I'm Hannah Weber. I am on Frameform. I've been featured on Daily Rec as well as the good old Road Decoder.
Road Decoder, wow.
But
Irregular.
Frameform is the tried and true place to hear my voice.
Perfect. Jen. Who's Jen?
Who's Jen? Jen's here. Jen Ray from Vancouver, BC. Married a tap dancer. Now I live in Washington, D.C. Well, actually Maryland. If you're from here, you get that it's all the same, which we all are based in the DMV, which anywhere outside of the DMV means Department of Motor Vehicles. But if you're from the DMV, you know what I mean. So that's where I am. Work a lot with dance, with film, with children. I absolutely love teaching dance to kids and working with them and working with media and education. And Frameform is a super fun project. I'm so excited to talk with Hannah and Claire every week about movies, moving, and everything in between.
Yup.
These used to be just conversations we had at events, some events that I produce and some events we'd travel to. And now we get to have them in a more structured way that reaches out to the world. And thank you, Rixie, for making that possible. We definitely
Absolutely.
couldn't do it without you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Rixie. Thank you for, saving our asses on many occasions, quite frankly, but thank you for all the work that you do.
Of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm Claire. I am actually based in the San Francisco Bay Area, so I am thousands of miles away from everyone else on this recording right now. But I am a dancer, dance videographer, editor, teacher, occasional grant writer. I wear many different hats that usually fall along the intersection of dance and film in some way. And it's just nice to be a part of the Rixie family and wonderful to be a part of Frameform as well. And just I feel that our weekly meetings are kind of like my free film school in a way because I learned so much from Jen.
Yeah.
Jen and Hannah. It's just great to just hash it out and have that be not just a way to reflect on what we see, but also have it be kind of like a ritual as a part of the week. It's really become such an integral part of the week.
Yeah.
I'm flattered that Claire Schweitzer's learning from me because she is a genius. So just
I think we all learn from each other weekly.
Totally.
Just the way that we have these conversations, especially the 3 of us with kind of different backgrounds. I work in advertising and I'm video editing on a regular. Jen is a teacher as an advocate and also a festival curator, and Claire also doing festival curating and creating her own work. So I think that's what works well with the podcast the most, is just coming from different but also similar backgrounds and just giving our perspective on
just like our hat collection.
Yes.
Yeah.
I actually have a box with about 20 hats right here, but it's not readily accessible. But hat collection, a lot of different experience coming together for just a mix of anecdotal advice, tricks of the trade, just kind of bragging on films we love, some that we don't love, and how they could maybe do better. But overall, I think we're very positive and kind of a good resource for people in our realm.
I feel like we've always talked about this, like whether it's group text or in person between the partners and I, like yo, the Frameform women are like super big brain, like they're way smarter than we are, and it's
way
like,
smarter.
And it's like, man,
My
some
neck
of their
hurts that my
like-
head is so heavy.
like they are talking about some things that it's like, man, like they're using big words, and we got to try and keep up. But
would you
no.
say like $5 words, $10 words?
I mean, I've been using
SAT?
SAT words for sure.
SAT.
You know,
Oh.
these are expensive words.
I actually teach SAT like as a part of my tutoring, so
There
like
you go.
they
It's
don't
always good to keep it
do
in
SAT
practice.
words anymore, but they but yeah, that's weird stuff finds its way into my vocabulary at times.
I know. That's awesome.
Well, something interesting is that, like, I think this is the first time we've all kind of been face to face, and so that's.
Yes.
I think, and this is something that we somewhat kind of discussed before we started recording, was that's because, like, the reason that this is the first time meeting is because Frameform started during the pandemic in 2020. And one thing that I said I would hold for the show was in one of the first 2 recordings, I think it was, you guys were kind of giving yourself like a future time capsule where you were like, man, I hope that we're out of the pandemic by now. Like,
Yeah.
and
And it was so pathetic to listen to when that episode came out, because it's like,
Who would have known?
nowhere in sight.
it was like the first test recording, and I think somebody said like, hey, I can't wait till we're done with this, and like here we are in May of 2021, and it's like, are we really out of it even still almost a full year later?
No. If you're
I
in
have an
Florida.
answer. It depends if you are in a red or a blue state, and I'm going to
Very-
leave it there. But
I'm not
Very
going to
true.
make this political. That's
Yeah.
outside of this conversation.
It
This
is
is
what it
I
is.
feel
outside
like
of
it's
this
a
chat
political
room.
question.
But I
It is
just
what
And
it
I'm not
is.
going to expand on it, but I think that whether you're in a red or blue state tells you if the pandemic is over or not.
exactly.
Yeah.
I just think
That's a
that
good
I
point.
always thought that was interesting because I think back then we just didn't know, and so that's why we haven't really had much FaceTime, because it's all digital. But the reason that you guys are here obviously is because season 2, when this recording is released, will have premiered, and
Woo.
that is huge. And I think we kind of wanted to take this time not only to introduce you guys to the rest of the Rixie audience, especially the small but growing YouTube audience, and I know I wrote down a few questions. This is kind of going to be a free form interview, a freeform interview.
Yeah.
But also just a discussion, just kind of about the ups and downs of the production that you've done so far of the season, and just things about what the show is and how you guys produce it. So I had one question just in case, like I said, somebody has never heard of you guys. I was wondering, because you guys are kind of in a niche lane of dance film, screen dance, podcasting, would you mind kind of describing what the show is to somebody who maybe has no idea what it is?
Yeah. So Frameform is a show in audio format, which is actually very rare in the dance community. It's a podcast. It's a podcast discussing dance films. That's basically it. But when I expand on that, so the things with dance film festivals, sometimes we get panels where we actually get to watch an interview happen in front of us. Usually they're like 15, 20 minutes. There's a Q&A. And honestly, it goes on and then it goes away. You're there and then it goes away. So the whole idea about Frameform is continuing that idea of what you would get at a film festival, but in an audio format, because, you know, everybody can listen to a podcast on their phone and it's accessible. So it's like learning outside of the classroom. You go to university, you only get these types of conversations in an educational space, in a space where you have to pay money to see this kind of content. In this case, it's free, unless unless we want to go into Patreon or something. I don't know.
Unless you want to sponsor us.
Yeah, if you
Yeah.
if you
Well,
have a
there's that new
smartphone.
Apple
Yeah.
format I heard you guys were talking about on All Staff a while
Yeah.
ago.
Yep.
Yes, we are.
But yeah, it's just a round table looking at the dance films that we present to you with these ideas that you would get in these kind of spaces. And, you know, it's outside the classroom. That's how I look at it. I don't know, Claire and Jen, like how you see it.
Jen, I saw that you raised your hand in the chat, and I will go right to
My
you.
emoji
Yeah.
hand.
Could you?
That's how we do on Frameform. That's part of our
Oh, okay. That's
language.
interesting.
Good cue
That's
there.
like I'm gonna talk next.
It's like it's actually really smart. We should
It's
be doing
seamless.
that.
Yeah, we should
It's
be doing that.
choreography.
See,
For-
smarter than us.
Yeah, right. There you go. Just the second. There you go. Hannah mentioned screen dance film. Could you kind of explain more what that is? Because I think a lot of people might think like, oh, dance videos on YouTube or dance videos on TikTok. That's not necessarily what this is. This is
No.
This is more scholarly, if you will. This is more of an art form.
Very educational, very scholarly, and which is a huge thing in the dance film community. There's a lot of journals out there, but I'm going to give it to Jen and Claire to talk about that.
Well, I think something I really love about our show is it varies. Like, not every episode's the same. So we kind of have, and we like chart this out in Airtable, favorite software, but we like chart this all out and figure out, okay, how many interview episodes do we want? This season, we've got some co-hosts. You know, who can we bring on that's like an expert in this niche within our niche or has some sort of special voice to offer in this conversation about the specific topic. But we also like, it's part curation education in a way that's more accessible and like doesn't require you to purchase a ticket or go to the theater. But I also really like that if we do discuss something like TikTok, which we did in season 1, episode 8, we do it on a very high level where we are actually thinking about like what are the consequences in culture here. We're not just saying like, oh, I love this TikTok video and like this person, someone I want to follow. Like we talked about like the security concerns and just like who owns TikTok, who's using TikTok. And that's just the one culture episode. But to answer your question, Mason, about like what is dance film or screen dance, we do dedicate a lot of our episodes to pulling out different elements of these films and like curating them kind of by theme. And these are films that might lean more towards music video, you know, but are a little bit different. And we do have a music video episode. But these are films that are like, might be narrative, might have voiceover or no voiceover. Dance is an element. It could be any genre of dance. It could be a documentary. We've talked about documentaries, but you know, when we talk about a dance film or a screen dance, it's usually a short to medium length film that we might see in a festival, might be created for the internet, we might see on our phones, and it merges dance and film. What we really try and do is point out what films do this really well, what films are like elevated examples of it.
Yeah. And to expand on that, the definition of screen dance can be sometimes frustratingly flexible in that you literally could like this call could technically be called screen dance because it does contain movement inside of a frame.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, like with the show that we do, even though it's like a niche and a niche and a niche, we're showing that the thoughts that surround screen dance and surround like the debates around it, like specifically like notions of like, you know, hybridity, like, you know, what is a true collaboration are, you know, pervade so many parts of the culture that we see. And I think something that's unique about Frameform that really is very rare in screen dance discourse is that it takes the conversation about the form to a very high level, but it makes it accessible to many, many, many people.
Absolutely.
It's not just contained to academia. It's not, you know, it's also not just like another another New York Times article about dance and film, they can go together. It really is elevating the conversation, but still making it accessible to people who may not have PhDs and may not be in the academy,
but are still interested. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and that's a big perk to the podcast format is you reach a broader audience. Like there might be someone that just searches dance or film or sees the cool Frameform artwork. Thanks, Mason and Hannah. And decides to listen for that. But you're going to get more pass-through traffic and accidental finds than someone who might accidentally go to a dance film festival. And like, as someone that's produced them in
really
two different cities, it's like there's certain parameters and goals. And once you have things in a different context that you're curating them, it really opens things up. Like recently we did a recording for an episode talking, it's called Dance Cells. And it's about like dance in commercials. And we talked about like, examples of commercials, but also like trends that we see through them, kind of like taking stereotypes and tropes that we see in commercials and dance, but then merging them and be like, okay, so in commercials that have dance, we see this and this and this. And then kind of peeling back the layers and seeing like, what's the deeper meaning of this? So I think something we do really well is take examples from out there in the world and then dissect them, and I just selfishly really enjoy those conversations. I'll listen to our episodes when we, do them, and then when we mix them, when we edit them, when we release them, then when I help my boomer parents start listening to the show, and I'll listen with them, I'll be like, oh, I think you'll like this episode. And I think that's what I really like is that there is that range where like we are talking about like the screen dance, film, art, and those definitions, but also different places that we see that more flexible understanding of screen dance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wrote down a bunch of questions. There's probably no way that we're going to get to all of them. But one thing that I really wanted to try and talk about in this is the pre-production, because we Dan and Tanner and I have talked about that a lot on All Staff. And the point of this show is to be transparent, is to give the people a look inside of what it really takes to create a podcast, to create music that you can release. And the first question that came to my head when I was writing them down was, how do you guys prepare to create a season? What is that pre-production like? Can you tell us maybe a little bit from each of you about the steps that it takes to get to where we are right now?
Yeah. I mean, when we were first starting, when I was just kind of like planning the seed and make it happen, was actually talking to Jen first, because I knew that I wanted her on this panel, and just kind of coming up with a way. And I said to her straight away, like, look, there's nothing like this out there, and the best way to get through this is just to like have a spreadsheet or some kind of design of segments, because that's what I like to listen to. And also learning from doing Road Decoder, it kind of got it didn't have segments. You just like played it and we were going through it. I remember the recording process, and we were just kind of going gung-ho on it. Where this one, I wanted a little bit more planning. I wanted to be, academic, but also relevant. And I didn't want to just talk about dance films, hence why we talk about, what we're watching in the very beginning. When I was teaching during graduate school, that was how I started the class, was actually asking students, like, what are you watching these days? Because that is about the culture that we're living in. And not everything that we're watching right now is, just movies and academic movies. Like, I'm watching The Sopranos right now, and we talked about that. And how
I like that
also,
question to open.
Yeah, that's a great one.
It's a great like icebreaker to kind of just get our minds going. And also just we go into our topic, and then one thing I really wanted to do was like make sure that we have an announcement about all these kind of other events that are happening, whether that is a class, a workshop, a film festival, or some kind of screening that is happening. So including the community out there kind of we're doing like a service to them. I'm not expecting anything in return of that, but it's just kind of like, how do we get more people listening, but also going to these events that they may be interested in? So with that, it's like creating the spreadsheet of like what we're going to talk about. And then when we got Claire in, we were like, all right, what are we going to talk about? And these are like kind of going through a web of ideas of like, these are the things that I've noticed that I want to talk about, whether that's advertising, whether that's like warehouse films, which is definitely a controversial topic.
Yeah.
and trend. It kind of goes on. And then it's just going into our curriculum is what we call it, where it's just, we lay out the land of how the season is going to go. And what topics we're going to talk about. I mean, Jen mentioned like which interviews and where we're going to place this in the season and all of that. And I'm going to let Claire.
Should we scare them and screen share our Airtable? I'm like closing my other tabs because we've got season 1 and 2 on there. And it's like, this is how we organize the ideas.
Jen, I would love if you could share your screen and even just give us like a minute of like why you use Airtable and how you use it, because.
Okay, I'm just closing all my tabs. Interested. How about Claire share?
Yeah.
Claire Bear can share. And I'm going to get this pulled up.
I mean, usually my process of preparation is rolling out of bed and seeing that Jen's already made a template for like, all the episodes that we're going to have in the season. So that's the process.
Yeah, on our work
it is
doc.
How I think. It is actually how I think.
It's a very long work doc where we put questions and comments and things that we want to link. It's season 1 is probably about like 100 some odd pages or something.
I can't see my keyboard. We're going to have to wait on the work doc. But this is the Airtable. So this is season 1. And we pretty much like name our episodes as we come up with them. We like giving a catchy episode. I think one of my favorites is Fleshing Out. That was our episode on nudity. And we're fleshing out the topic. It's a pun. We love, a good joke, but we adore a bad joke.
Jen is really into puns.
It's like a problem. But I think it means I'm going to be a good parent because my humor is just like, oh, gosh.
Well, with a name like Jen Ray, like it's ripe for puns.
My life is a pun. What am I supposed to do?
You ray of light.
Yeah.
Well, I think I would say Dan and Tanner, take notes because this is how you keep it super like organized.
I'll send you the template.
And
it's impressive.
If
you could send that template,
here's what you need to realize.
I'd love to use it.
Frameform, Frame Friends. All I have done talking to Tanner and Dan about it is like, these guys have their shit on lock. And like, we need to like do some sort of masterclass with them about how to pre-produce a freaking show.
Yeah.
And you asked why Airtable? Let me see. I don't know. I want to see which episodes I'm responsible for the show notes. So I'm just going to go ahead and group by this field. Boom. So there we go. And that actually helps us number it too. Because it's like, okay, so Claire, and then you get your list. I mean, this software is amazing. So,
I just think you guys have always been very organized and ahead of the curve on as far as pre-production. And we appreciate that because you make our job a lot easier.
Mason, I have to say, the reason that we do this, besides Jen being the way she is,
issues,
but it's a good thing. But we know that you three work on a lot of other projects, and us doing our part is we just want to make your life easier. So all you guys need to worry about is the edit and, and promoting us in all of that way. So, I mean, again, as we've said in the past, and I'll say it again here, it's a labor of love,
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. I have a question for our producers.
Yes.
So last season, consistently, our biggest listenership was in my mother's homeland, was in Brazil. And I don't understand why. I I don't it's an English podcast. It's not Portuguese. I'm stoked about it, but I'm also like interesting that I'm from Canada. We're based in the US and our listenership is mostly outside of the country.
Well, I want to give a small answer to that, and that if you look at the number of dance film festivals out there, like Brazil probably has like the most festivals per capita in that country. Like there's so much going on there.
I want to see like a map. Like we should get like a map. And fellas, the dance film community is like a screen dance. Like it is so big and so small at the same time. Like we spread out over the whole world. We like teach, we make videos, like we do all sorts of different things, but it's such a small network. You know, it's like you probably know most people within 2 degrees of separation.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
so what's interesting is that for most of season 1, like you said, Brazil was like I would say one of the highest amount of listeners, and it's really funny during the off season because we get chart updates like weekly about our shows, and sometimes it's like, you know, sometimes it's none, sometimes there are some, and on the off season, Frameform has like charted like number 25 in the UAE randomly. Why that is, no idea. But
people like on layovers in Dubai, just like, oh hey, I want to listen to this. Cool.
I mean, I guess there's a performing arts scene in the UAE because, I mean, you guys were charting there, so it's like, why that is, I really couldn't tell you, but it's
well, and is it that way for the other shows? Like, do our country stats? You know what I'm saying? Like for all the Rixie shows, I wonder if different interests have different country charts.
You know,
like
that's
ours,
a great
Claire's
question.
is like rightfully citing that, like, yeah, it's probably because the huge dance film community there. But
yeah, well, it's interesting that you bring that up because I don't know if it was last episode or the episode before, we talked about that All Staff has a majority listeners from India. And
There's a highlight clip of it.
Yeah, I
Check out the
heard
highlight
that.
clip.
And it's like, you know, how do I track that? You know what I mean? Like how did they start listening to the show? Why is it getting promoted there? Because I'm not doing anything out of the ordinary.
You're not like specifically marketing.
I'm not targeting
this show to India.
Yeah, I'm not targeting Indian listeners. So, you know, I don't really know. I guess it's a matter of the keywords that we use, or, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I wish I could, but, it's all over the place. Like the Daily Rec will chart in like Germany and France some weeks, and then, you know, it's just so random. I couldn't tell you what it is, but it's interesting. Hopefully there's some new charting countries for season 2, but
maybe we'll get it in the US.
Hopefully the US. But it's always Apple, which is good. I wanted to ask how you guys prepared for, like, whenever you guys have a guest on, like, so for I think it's episode 2 that you had Andrew Chapman for season 2. What do you guys do to actually prepare to bring on somebody that you want to talk to, or somebody that's going to talk with you guys? I mean, what steps do you take to prepare?
So we did a big mock-up email of like what we want to say to people.
Shared Google Doc.
And luckily, Andrew was someone who was very familiar with us, as well as our other brands that we have done in the past. And so he was definitely very like 100% on go for us. But it's part of that whole curriculum on the Airtable of like, you know, oh, it would be really cool to talk to this person for. Let's talk about when we did Timeless Movers. We got Ingrid Nocturne, who's based in the UK.
I was looking her up. She's actually huge.
Yeah,
she's huge.
It's kind of a big deal.
Like a huge deal.
I mean, and with her, she's, you know, she has a company, and she started doing choreography and dance film later in her life. So we're talking about, you know, people who are just ageless in this sense of dance, and why, making her film is relevant, as well as just to how she got here. So that definitely comes into the play of things. But we also reach out and tell them, like, what's your recording setup? Do you have, maybe an iPhone or some kind of H4n
or a microphone, yeah.
Yeah, a microphone. And sometimes, most of the times, no, but we just make sure that their phone is propped up to their face as possible. And it's this part has not always gone to plan, but making sure that they wear headphones, that they have to wear headphones during the call, as we all are. And so far everyone has been willing to do our show.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been great to see how. I mean, it's been great, even just like obviously just talking within the limited pool of people I know, just the reception the show has received too, and just how. I mean, even like random people I wouldn't even have expected to listen to the show have listened to it.
Yeah.
And I think Jen mentioned the boomer parents early on. Like my dad is, subscribed to the podcast. This is the first time he subscribed to like any kind of podcast. But like with regards to the guests, like we do come from different backgrounds, but like I think we recognize when, someone else has more knowledge and can like speak more from experience within a particular realm. And like we want to glean from that as much as we possibly can. And I think that gleaning from that makes for valuable listening to anyone who's interested in getting into this form and wondering, like, is this a form for me? Like, do I have a place in here? And the thing I love about Andrew's episode, which you'll hear presumably later this month, is that it really shows that the form is accessible to so many people and that you can engage with it on a deep level.
Yeah.
Did you guys like I'm sure you reached out to a bunch of people. Have you had any pushback from anybody? Any like they just didn't want to do it, they just shot you down or anything? Or
no, everyone's been really stoked, which is awesome.
That's amazing. I mean,
only-
100% success rate is
The only
top-notch.
problem I would say right now is just scheduling.
and getting people to wear those
That's-
headphones.
always the
Yeah,
hardest.
scheduling is the hardest because we want to work with their schedule for sure. Because
And sometimes
Each of
they're in
you have your own.
Australia.
Yes.
Like this season.
exactly. So it definitely is a struggle at times, but I mean, we're doing the best we can, and I know that they are too.
Yeah.
With just trying to make some kind of FaceTime for this kind of opportunity to elevate their voice a little bit.
Awesome.
And from a practical work perspective, I think like I'm a big fan, not sponsored here, big fan of Google Suite. We use Drive for all of our Frameform stuff, like
So do
keeping
we.
all those folders like beautifully labeled and the subfolders, like everything
Oh yeah.
in a routine. And, just staying in communication, being very honest, like up front. Like, I don't think that episode's going to work. Instead of like,
Yeah.
later on being like, I felt kind of weird about this topic earlier, and I didn't say like we've never had that issue. And I have to say, like, this work dynamic with the three of us, like Mason, you too, like you're here,
Yes.
you're in the work dynamic, but like really in the mix, like the three of us, we have such a healthy work dynamic and communication, which I think is why we don't feel drained by it at all. And we were excited for the new season and all the topics coming up.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great. Do you all have like favorite moments that you'd want to share from season 2? I don't know, like maybe a short favorite moment.
No spoilers. but,
Maybe like
you know.
our favorite episode from
Spoilers.
season
Yeah, that would be
1?
great.
Because we're
Oh,
like
yeah.
we're like 6 here, and I'll actually pull
No,
up
we're
season
like
1.
we'll be on 8 starting tomorrow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh,
But
my
I feel
gosh.
like some of them aren't like complete. Here we go. Oh, definitely one of my favorite types of topics that we do is like we kind of have like groups. So we have like our interviews with people. We have like our kind of like weapon of choice is like our music video episode. We're doing one of those this year. We have This was about like YouTube class videos. This was I mean, I did really love our TikTok episode because like one of my mentors, like Leslie Scott, was on there and just like it was such a good conversation. And if anyone even mentions TikTok, I'm like, can you just listen to this episode? Because like then we don't have to have a conversation, which I know sounds bad, but it's like I don't want to talk about it. So I talked about it on the show. Just like listen to that. That's how I feel.
Yeah. I mean, if as far as response I've had about specific episodes, far and away, I guess the most positive response I've had was for Internet Made the Video Star because, class videos are such like an integral part of dance now. And there's so much as far as how they're created, like how they shape the field as a whole that really has reverberating effects. But one of my favorite episodes actually was the Dance and Tap panel, or the American Tap panel that was actually
Nice.
that was a great one. And as someone who has absolutely no background in tap, and just hearing how in depth and I mean honestly how heated some of the debate got was really illuminating for me, and was really
well, and
really
thank you
opened my
both for
eyes.
helping with that event, because you both were there that night and helped. Like Claire was managing the Zoom, like you recorded that, so appreciate it.
Absolutely.
For me, honestly, I mean, I love the music video. I am someone that watches a lot of music videos on a regular. So it was just nice to finally rip that Band-Aid to like sit down and really talk about
Yeah.
it. But I also really liked Pandemic Vision, mostly just how we produced it, as well as how Mason and I last minute got on a call with Talia in California and just like ripped a phone call on the phone, because I mean, that was one of the things that when Mason and I figured out how we can record cell phone calls for Daily Rec, we were like, we could do this with anybody.
Yeah.
So premium.
It was really nice. Also, we were home during that time when we recorded that call, so it was nice to just like not be stressed out at the office trying to organize this moment to make it happen.
That was really interesting. If I'm remembering it correctly, you called me on the phone, and then we merged the call with her, right?
Yeah.
And then you rolled on your microphone. I plugged in my phone, recorded my audio coming out of the headphone jack, and then like in the edit we like removed you from the phone call and pieced her in. It's
Take notes, people.
Yeah, I mean,
that's how it's done.
It's this weird puzzle.
He's a wizard.
Don't make him repeat himself.
He's a wizard, I'm telling you.
It's like this weird fire that you have to put out, and it's like, okay, we can make this work, but we're gonna have to do this, and But yeah, that I forgot about that. That was awesome.
I really love those moments where when something like that exactly, even though I hate fires when it comes to just like garbage fires in general. And that one was like a mini one that happened, and we were able to make it, just make it golden.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I fucking hate fires. Oh my god,
Claire especially.
Like literally every recording session in season 1, it was literally like, okay, I'm going into the closet and coming back out. The sky is orange again. The EQI is like 400. It's going to be like this for 3 months.
Yeah.
So
I don't mean to laugh, because it's obviously not funny, and California is a wonderful place, and the people and the nature, like I just wish that it would be sacred and not burn. But it is funny because I think season 1 is pretty much defined by you saying like, oh, like what are we watching? But first, how's it going? Oh, well, just I hope the fires end, which fair enough. That's a good thing to be preoccupied with every week.
Yeah, which is the reason why we've decided to go evergreen this season. So we're just trying to not put an expiration date or something that spoils like milk on what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Well, you reminded me of that, because when I think about evergreen, I also think about like the fact that the show is the only show on Rixie that is family friendly and is not explicit. And I just want to say that I commend you guys for doing that, because it is so difficult. it is so difficult to hold your tongue.
It is very hard.
And even editing the first episode of season 2, there's a part where I think Jen made a joke with a like a bad word in it, and we were like, and you guys were like, wait, we can't do that. We can't do that.
Yeah.
And gosh, it is so hard. I mean, even this show, like, we have to make it explicit because unfortunately we use big words, and so
wait, so this is my moment where I could just drop an F-bomb,
you can say
right?
whatever
No.
you want.
Yeah,
here.
if y'all want to get it all out from season 1.
I'm curious, is that difficult for you guys? Do you feel like you have to hold back, or do you feel like because you've been in those environments where you have to speak without using bad language that you're trained in a way not to do so?
I mean, yeah. No, well, Jen, you're the teacher, so
Yes.
Well, I mean, the thing is, Jen's on this call. Miss Jen's not on this call, right? So I don't talk
Good
to
point.
you. Like, I really, not to sound like a total hippie, but I really try to be present and like communicate with the person or the people that are right there. So I am a different person if I am talking to a class of 8-year-old children, you know, and we're preparing for dance recital, which was my evening before this. Or if I'm here talking to people closer to my own age, you know, so
Yep.
I think it does happen pretty naturally. And given the content, I think where it becomes challenging is like when we had our episode on nudity and we knew the content was going to be adult, we're like, or even Internet Made the Video Star, like how do we talk about, you know, things like sexuality or like nudity or, you know, these topics that are not family friendly in a way that a parent could, you know, a teenager could listen to and it would still be appropriate. Like I work with a lot of teenagers as well. So, you know, I want them to be able to listen to a lot of our content because
Learn from
you
it.
know, exactly. And we're saving people, you know, thousands of dollars and tons of time going to school to learn, you know, the hard way and making mistakes. And that's something that's, I think, really a big goal this year is making it, you know, we're not like a help or a how-to show, but, you know, we're part curation, part education, you know, other Asian words like conversation,
I think another thing
Rhythm
is
Nation.
Yeah, there you go.
it's because the three of us also have experience of being in like and talking in a festival space where you're talking to a big group of people. I mean, that's not the time where you drop an F-bomb or slip a little something in there, you know? So in this way, like where I'm in the headspace of that kind of audience,
Yeah.
you know, like I'm trying to be a speaker to someone out there and inspire them to be involved in this line of work.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you guys talk about film all the time, you know, and I realize the podcast is about dance film, but all of you have your own favorite film.
Yeah.
And I'd like to know what your guys' favorite film is. You don't need to necessarily explain why if you don't want to, but I just wanted to know. You know, it's always good.
I got mine.
All right, go for it, Jen.
It's not the most lofty of films, but your favorite film isn't always. I have to say, one of my favorite films, and I recently remember this because you mentioned this actor a couple weeks ago, is School of Rock. Because
Oh,
that is
yes.
Jack
Good
Black
stuff.
at his best.
Great film. It's a
That
great
film
Great
was, you know,
film.
it's Richard Linklater. He does youth movies so well and like period
God.
pieces. And that is like a timeless, but like
Mhm.
came out when I was in 7th grade.
It's
So
amazing.
that's a formative experience.
Nice.
And I actually directed a musical to it last year at this school. I mean, the kids were complete brats, but you know, I never say that about anyone I teach, but at this school they were. Yeah. Anyways, but School of Rock is still my favorite movie.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
What about you, Hannah?
Well, I have a couple favorites, but I'm gonna say Chungking Express by Wong Kar-wai.
Yes.
I say School of Rock and you come in with the art film.
Yeah.
I when I was in graduate school, I fell in love with Chinese and Japanese filmmaking. I love everything that Wong Kar-wai has done. I'm not a big fan of the Grandmaster, which is a very popular one.
I think I've seen that.
I love that style of work where, it has kind of like the stop frame and the long time lapses, and it's got a very like late 90s, early 2000s aesthetic with the green lighting and all of the metaphors involved in it. And it was just May 1st, which is the expiration date. Because the whole movie is about expiration, and I really like
What was it called again?
Chunking Express.
Chunking Express.
Wong Kar-wai.
I'm gonna look that one up. It sounds
If you have
interesting.
HBO Max, you can watch In the Mood for Love, which is another
yes.
one
Oh,
of his works.
yeah.
Oh my god.
And used to be really rare. Like it was a big deal when that became available
Yeah.
Okay.
in North America on streaming services.
So I would definitely
Yes.
take a look at his works. And I also love
Yes.
Peeping Tom, which
Oh yes.
I've
yes.
heard of that one.
Yeah.
Like the old like kinetoscope film
Dan has heard of that because of
from
the Daily
like
Rec.
over 100 years ago, or is there a newer film?
yeah. I said Peeping Tom.
You said
so
Peeping Tom.
If you
Yes,
haven't
you did.
watched it, you should go ahead and watch
I
it.
need to follow your Daily Rec. Speaking of,
Yes.
everyone go watch the Daily Rec. Listen to the Daily Rec. What about you, Claire?
Well, I mean, first of all, I'm just noticing the little film that this shadow is making. Like my zoom light is making like this little rectangle on my head because of the
kinda
sunset
cool.
and like the little like squiggly.
It's amazing.
So,
Pretty cool.
This is my favorite film. No, there. Honestly, there are two films that honestly, I came in contact with last year, and have both just kind of been in my head ever since. One of them is Robert Wise's The Haunting.
Ooh.
So for those of you who don't know, Robert Wise was also the director of West Side Story. And The Haunting is just this
kind of a big deal.
Yeah. So The Haunting is just this very tense, like very psychological thriller that is, everything that West Side Story was, like The Haunting is the complete opposite of, but it's
Great
just
movie.
so terrifying on such, it's terrifying without showing much, which is, to me, was one of the best films. And then the other film, which is a film that's very deep in my heart, it actually was the last film I saw before the pandemic, and the film I think I've seen maybe 5 times since, and that is Celine Sciamma's Portrait of a Lady on Fire. And if you want a perfect isolation film,
Nice.
that is the film.
Awesome.
Also, The Tribe, Ukrainian film.
Yes!
So good.
I love The Tribe.
It's like the
Oh
best.
my God.
Well, thank you guys so much for like talking with us and making awesome content for Rixie.
Yeah.
And if you're listening to this on the day it comes out, if I'm not mistaken, episode 1 of season 2 has premiered. So go over to Frameform, their RSS feed, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, you name it. It's going to be on that podcast player. Or if you'd like
The
to
audio
stay,
should be on our YouTube.
if you want to stay on YouTube, it will also be here in audio form. But we just want to thank you guys so much for coming and talking to us, and we're
thank
excited
you all.
for
Thank
season 2
you.
to roll out.
Very
Thank you.
excited.
And
Thank
thank you
you.
so much for making the podcast, like Frameform, sound the way it is. We owe so much.
Thanks
to
for
Rick.
making it a thing.
Of course.
Instead of
Yes.
just
You all did
us
it.
like
Truly, you guys
FaceTiming
made
each
it.
other.
You guys made it a thing.
Yeah, you guys.
You made it a thing, and
Aw.
we're super proud of you guys.
I'm glad that I like to work with my friends. And Mason, when he said that he wanted to make a podcast and record label, I told him I want to do this. So I thank you, Mason, and
You all did it.
also
You all did
Tanner
it.
and
Seriously.
Dan.
So good.
You guys are awesome.
Thanks, Dannerson.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much for listening to All Staff. Like I said, go check out the new season of Frameform, and
See
we will
y'all.
see you guys next week. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye.
All Staff is a production of Rixie, edited and mixed by myself, Daniel Walker, and Tanner Carlton. If you want to keep up with all things Rixie, follow us on Instagram at rixie.co. That's RIXEY.co. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, leave us a review and rate the show. It really helps out.